A human accidentally touched to my leg, and what happened next was unforgettable. Alien girl is surprised. The docking clamps latched onto the shuttle with a shudder that rolled up Lyria's spine and made her long ears flick like startled antennae. She inhaled, straightened her posture, and told herself this was fine, perfectly fine, absolutely not a terrible idea. The horizon's wake was a human vessel, which meant she was about to be surrounded by creatures known for their unpredictable voices, chaotic energy fields, and complete disregard for orderly telepathic boundaries. Her people trained diplomats for years before sending them into human proximity, and she, after 3 weeks of rushed preparation, had been deemed promising enough. That phrase alone should have been a warning. The airlock hissed open, and a blast of warm human atmosphere rushed in, carrying scents so unfamiliar she nearly stepped back. Something roasted, something metallic, something suspiciously like burned sugar. A crew member greeted her with a cheerful wave that nearly smacked another in the face. Humans were so incredibly kinetic. She dipped her head politely and followed their gestures toward the main corridor, trying to ignore the way the ship vibrated under her feet, as if humming an off-key psalm. Then came the pilot. Arden Holt rounded the corner at a jog, which was already too much uncontrolled motion for Lyria's sanity. But he also carried a steaming cup in one hand and a glowing datapad in the other. The moment he saw her, he attempted a respectful stop. The universe decided otherwise. The cup tilted. He lunged to save it. His leg shot out at a peculiar angle, and the next thing she knew, his knee brushed the side of her calf. It was barely a touch. Gentle, accidental, barely more than a whisper of contact. But her world detonated. The psychic resonance slammed into her like a burst of supernova light. A cascade of foreign images crashed through her mind. Arden as a child chasing glowing drones across a dusty spaceport. Arden staring out a porthole at the endless dark. Arden laughing alone at some joke no one else heard. Arden sitting in the cockpit with a haunting loneliness coiled around him like silent gravity. Every emotion hit her raw and unshielded. Her breath locked in her chest. Her knees almost buckled. Arden froze, horrified. Oh stars, I didn't mean, are you okay? Please be okay. I didn't break you, did I? She tried to answer, but her mouth had decided to take a brief sabbatical. Her ears twitched violently. Humans often mistook that for aggression, which was deeply unfair because right now she was mostly experiencing existential confusion. She raised a hand to steady herself against the wall, and the pilot skittered backward like she'd threatened him with interstellar litigation. Sorry. Really sorry. I should not be allowed to have legs, he babbled. Voices echoed down the corridor as more humans peeked in, drawn by the commotion. One whispered, "Did he hit the dignitary?" Another replied, "Arden hits everything. It was only a matter of time." Someone else joked, "We should install bumpers on him, like furniture pads, but for pilots." Lyria was unfamiliar with furniture pads, but suspected they were mildly insulting. She drew a slow breath, trying to wrestle the psychic echoes back under control. But the resonance wasn't fading. It lingered, soft, persistent, like a thread tugging gently at her thoughts. She could still sense faint traces of Arden's emotions, fluttering near her mind. Bewildered curiosity, concern, a deep, thrumming guilt that felt strangely warm. Her voice finally returned in a thin whisper. "I am intact." Arden blinked. "That's good. Intact is good. Functioning is also good. Breathing too. You're breathing, right?" A laugh slipped from her, not entirely voluntary. "Yes, I am breathing." "Great. Excellent. Perfect." He nodded so fast she worried his head might detach and roll away. "I promise I usually have complete control over my limbs. Except the times I don't." "Is that frequent?" He hesitated. "Define frequent." The crew muffled their snickers. Lyria tried to focus on her mission, establish diplomatic rapport, encourage interspecies understanding, represent her people with honor and poise. But the psychic connection pulsed again, sending a warm ripple through her chest that made her inhale sharply. Arden noticed and paled slightly, as though bracing for her to explode or declare a duel. She straightened, smoothing her clothing. "Pilot Arden Holt," she said, trying to reestablish order. What occurred just now was unexpected. That makes two of us, he muttered. Should I file a report? Accidental alien contact resulting in Weird Mind Zap. That phrasing is inadvisable. Right. Sorry. I'm new at interspecies diplomacy. Usually my job involves not crashing into things. Today I have failed at that too. Her ears softened, a sign of involuntary amusement. I believe I will adjust. But inside, nothing felt adjustable. The resonance hummed steadily, a quiet, undeniable bond threading through the air between them. Fragile yet unbreakable, wild yet strangely comforting. It called to her, whispering that something monumental had begun in this chaotic corridor. Arden shifted awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. So, welcome aboard. Lyria exhaled slowly. Yes, thank you. I suspect this will be memorable. And the bond, pulsing like a distant star coming to life, agreed. Lyria walked through the corridors of the horizon's wake, with her hands folded neatly behind her back, attempting to look like a composed emissary instead of someone whose entire neural network had recently been jolted by an overcaffeinated human pilot. Her long ears betrayed her every attempt at stoicism, flicking at the slightest sound. Engineering hisses, crew chatter, mysterious clanks that humans claimed were normal ship noises. Given their casual attitude toward explosions, she wasn't convinced. She tried to focus on her diplomatic objectives, but the psychic bond pulsed softly in her mind, like a distant heartbeat just off rhythm from her own. Arden's emotions drifted in faint, unintentional waves, nervousness, curiosity, and a persistent self-directed embarrassment, so strong she could practically hear him apologizing internally on a loop. She had no idea how to mute any of it. Her people's manuals on cross-species conduct had not included a chapter titled, When a Human Accidentally Psychic Bonds with You Because of Leg Contact. The ship's commander had prepared a small reception in the observation lounge, a gesture of respect, though clearly hastily arranged judging by the assortment of snacks that looked suspiciously like emergency rations disguised as appetizers. A tray of brightly colored cubes floated by on an anti-grav serving drone, humming cheerfully. Lyria accepted one, sniffed it, and decided it smelled safe enough. It tasted like sweetened rubber. She smiled politely anyway. Arden entered the lounge moments later, stiff-backed and wide-eyed, as if terrified of making accidental physical contact with anything at all. He kept his arms locked at his sides, elbows tucked in, moving like a man who'd read a warning label that said, "Do not touch anything under penalty of galactic incident." The crew noticed. One nudged another and whispered, "Look, it's Arden on stealth mode." Someone else replied, "If he stays that stiff, we can use him as a structural support beam." Arden overheard and groaned. Lyria felt the wave of mortified energy spike through the bond. She nearly choked on her rubber-sweet cube, suppressing a laugh. He approached her with a cautious smile. "Emissary Lyria, I promise I have been studying the ship's layout, so there will be no more collisions." She tilted her head. "And have you succeeded?" "Not really. I walked into a door panel earlier, but I'm improving." Her ears twitched with amusement before she could stop them. The bond warmed. Arden noticed the twitch and smiled, which made the warmth deepen, swirling pleasantly around the back of her mind. This was becoming complicated. The commander clapped Arden on the shoulder, accidentally of course, since humans seemed incapable of gentle gestures, and gestured for Lyria to follow. "We've prepared a tour of the ship," he said. "Pilot Holt here will be your guide." Arden's face froze in a silent plea for mercy. She sensed it telepathically. The commander noticed none of this. Lyria offered a reassuring nod. "I would welcome the opportunity." Arden led her out into the corridor, walking with exaggerated care, as though every object had declared itself a potential hazard. Lyria remained a respectful distance behind him, both to keep the bond from flaring too strongly and to prevent further limb-related catastrophes. He showed her the navigation bay, which buzzed with soft neon lights and rotating 3D star charts that shimmered with holographic trails. Lyria found herself leaning closer, captivated by the projection of the Triarch Nebula, only to feel Arden's curiosity brush her mind, an unintentional nudge that carried awe and a shy hope that she liked to display. She cleared her throat. Your charts are impressive. Arden beamed. Thanks. They're not as accurate as yours probably are, but we try. Humans are really good at guessing. Sometimes even correctly. Is that an official motto of your species? It's on a few t-shirts. Her laugh slipped out before she could stop it. The bond shimmered, resonating like the gentle echo of an instrument string. Arden's thoughts fluttered with warmth, surprise, and a hint of pride. She steadied herself, reminding her racing heartbeat that she was on a diplomatic assignment, not a whatever this chaotic emotional exchange was becoming. They continued the tour, stopping next in engineering, where glowing reactors pulsed like artificial hearts. The chief engineer, a broad-shouldered woman with a welding visor perched crookedly on her head, waved them over. So you're the emissary who survived Arden's leg attack, she said. Arden groaned, face in hands. Can we please stop calling it that? It was an accident. The engineer shrugged. Most disasters are. Lyria struggled to maintain diplomatic neutrality as the bond fed her a wave of Arden's suffering mixed with reluctant amusement. She exhaled steadily, trying not to let her ears give her away. They left engineering with Arden muttering to himself about unfair reputations. Lyria caught fragments through the resonance. I don't even do that many leg attacks. Could have happened to anyone. This is fine. She found the internal monologue strangely endearing. The tour concluded at the aft observation window, where the cosmos stretched in shimmering bands of violet, blue, and black. Stars glittered like scattered fragments of ancient stories. Lyria felt a pull, a quiet yearning, the same loneliness she had glimpsed from Arden earlier, this time gentler, shaped by wonder instead of absence. Arden leaned lightly against the railing, keeping several careful inches between them. This is my favorite place on the ship, he said. Feels like the universe is less big, or maybe just less empty. The bond pulsed again, warm and soft. She answered quietly, It does not feel empty. Arden turned toward her, surprised, then smiled in a way that made her chest tighten. Yeah, he murmured. I guess not. For a moment they simply stood there, two beings orbiting the same silence, tied by something neither fully understood. The hum of the ship blending with the gentle rhythm of their shared resonance. And in that quiet space, Lyria felt the universe tilt just a little, reshaping itself around the accidental bond that refused to fade. The diplomatic council chamber aboard the Horizon's wake had been designed for serious interspecies negotiation, but today it resembled the aftermath of a cosmic juggling accident. Holographic screens flickered with readings no one could agree on, translation drones buzzed nervously, and a bowl of complementary nutrient spheres floated in circles because someone had forgotten to turn off the table's micrograv mode. Lyria sat at the center of the room, trying very hard not to look like her brain was conducting a small symphony without her consent. Across the table, a cluster of human diplomats discussed the situation in hushed tones. Arden sat with them, though sat was a generous description. He kept shifting, tapping, fidgeting, and occasionally whispering apologies under his breath even when he hadn't moved. Lyria felt every spike of his anxiety through the bond. It vibrated lightly in her mind like a distant alarm someone had wrapped in polite fabric but forgotten to turn off. A medical specialist finally entered, holding a glowing scanning device shaped suspiciously like a whisk. Emissary Lyria, he said, may I check your neural field resonance? She nodded. The moment the device hummed to life, the bond pulsed sharply, so loud and sudden that Arden yelped and nearly flipped his chair. Everyone stared at him. He pointed at himself, mortified. Sorry. Shared thing. Resonance. Link. Whatever we're calling it. The specialist's eyes widened. It's active from both ends? Fascinating. Arden groaned. Please don't say fascinating. Whenever doctors say that, something weird is about to happen to me. Lyria felt the truth of that sentiment flicker through him, accompanied by the memory of an incident involving a medical bay, an experimental sleep mask, and 3 straight hours of multilingual snoring alerts. She fought the urge to smile. The specialist waved the device again. The bond appears to be stabilizing. Stabilizing into what? Arden asked. A polite handshake? A cosmic friendship bracelet? A shared insurance policy? Possibly a low-level telepathic link. the specialist answered. Lyria's heart tightened. A link was more than an accident. A link was something her people treated with reverence, caution, and a great deal of paperwork. The council members whispered among themselves. The ship's communications officer glanced at his pad and announced, "Both the Valyrian Assembly and the Human Interstellar Accord are requesting hourly updates." Arden sank lower in his seat. Fantastic. Now two governments know I bumped a leg incorrectly. Lyria felt the warmth of his embarrassment and sent back a gentle ripple of reassurance, without meaning to. Arden jolted upright. "Wait, was that you? Did you just send me a feeling?" The room fell silent. Everyone stared. She swallowed. "I may have." "Neat," he whispered, then blinked. "Also terrifying, but mostly neat." To test the connection, one diplomat suggested placing Lyria and Arden in a controlled environment. The phrase alone made Arden twitch. Controlled environments on human ships often meant bright lights, uncomfortable chairs, and sensors that beeped menacingly whenever someone breathed wrong. They were escorted to a small chamber lined with hollow panels displaying calming imagery, drifting nebulae, star whales gliding through cosmic tides, and a soothing animation of a comet giving a thumbs up. Arden whispered, "These rooms always make me feel like I'm being interviewed by the universe." Lyria sat across from him, maintaining what she hoped was a safe, resonance-neutral distance. "Try focusing on a simple thought," one of the researchers said through the intercom. "Something calm and neutral." Arden closed his eyes. Calm, neutral, peaceful, absolutely not panicking. The bond quivered like a distressed comet. Lyria exhaled. "Perhaps think of something pleasant." He tried again. This time she felt the gentle flicker of a memory. Arden flying through an open starfield, the cockpit humming around him, his mind quiet for once. The image flowed into her easily, warm and steady. Her chest softened. "That," she murmured, "is peaceful." Arden opened one eye. "Did it work?" "Yes." "Huh. Look at that. I can do psychic stuff. I'm basically a wizard now." The intercom crackled. "Pilot Holt, please do not refer to yourself as a wizard in official logs." No promises. When it was Lyria's turn, she hesitated. Sharing a memory was not casual among her kind. But Arden's earnest expression, mixed with a trace of lingering coffee smell she still didn't understand, gave her courage. She closed her eyes and thought of the crystalline winds of her homeworld, the way they sang through the temple spires, carrying music that shaped the dreams of children. Arden inhaled sharply. "Stars, that's beautiful." His awe washed over her through the bond, and she felt her own reaction ripple back to him, forming a loop, gentle, deepening. The researchers scribbled frantically, but Lyria and Arden barely noticed. Their minds resonated in soft synchrony, the first harmonious moment since the accident. Then, of course, something exploded. A loud bang shook the chamber, followed by emergency klaxons blaring. Arden jumped to his feet. "That wasn't me. I swear on all known gravity stabilizers, that wasn't me." The intercom sputtered. "Minor reactor fluctuation. Engineering is investigating." Arden grimaced. "Engineering is investigating? That's what they say right before they hand out protective helmets." Lyria felt a sudden spike of concern, not hers. His. It tugged at her like a magnetic pull, instinctive and earnest. The bond had woven itself deeper during their exercise, strong enough that they felt each other's fear as clearly as their own. Arden looked at her. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "And you?" "Mostly worried the ship is about to impersonate a firework." The alarms quieted moments later, leaving only a buzz of tension in the air. The researchers dismissed them with strict instructions to rest, avoid further accidental bonding, and absolutely not touch each other again. They walked down the corridor side by side, avoiding eye contact and every nearby object. Lyria spoke first. "It seems our connection is evolving." Arden chuckled weakly. "Yeah, starting to feel less like an accident and more like a feature." Her ears warmed. "A feature? Well," he said, rubbing his neck, "you didn't run away screaming, so I'm calling that progress." She didn't run because the bond tugged her forward, drawing them closer with every shared emotion. Something was forming, quiet, powerful, unstoppable. As they reached the lift, she felt his gentle, unspoken thought drift into her mind. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out. And she let her answer flow back, soft and certain. Together. The next morning began with the ship doing something it absolutely should not have been doing, humming in a minor key. Lyria felt it before she heard it, a strange reverberation that prickled across the psychic bond and woke her from sleep with the sensation of someone shaking a cosmic maraca in her skull. Arden's half-awake confusion drifted into her mind. 3 blurry thoughts tangled together. What time is it? Why is the ship singing? And please don't let this be my fault. She met him in the corridor outside the briefing deck, where he stood staring suspiciously at a wall panel, as though expecting it to confess to something. "Did you feel that?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "and I believe the ship is attempting to communicate." "With who?" Arden glanced around. "Hopefully not me. I'm terrible at languages that involve humming." As they approached the briefing room, the door slid open to reveal an assembly of tense officers clustered around a holographic display. A projection of the ship flickered above the table, with red blinking warning indicators hovering near the engine core. The commander greeted them with a grim expression. "We have a situation," he said. "Something attempted to access restricted systems overnight. It wasn't external. No breach in the hull. No incoming signals. It came from inside." Arden raised a hand. "Before you ask, no, I didn't sleepwalk into the engine again. I checked." One officer sighed in a way that suggested Arden had, in fact, sleepwalked into the engine before. Lyria stepped forward. "What exactly was accessed?" The commander pointed at the floating diagram. "Diplomatic protocols, engine control, and your neural scans." Arden winced. "Oh, great. Someone's stealing my brainwaves. Honestly, they could have asked. I'm easy to negotiate with." But Lyria felt something else, a chill that brushed the back of her mind, a ripple of intent, a pattern she recognized. She touched her temples lightly. "I sense interference, a presence, not human." Arden blinked. "Alien presence, like hostile, or like someone who wants to borrow sugar." Her ears tightened. "Hostile seems more likely." The commander ordered heightened security. Officers dispersed, leaving Lyria and Arden studying the hologram alone. A flicker of movement along the engine schematic caught Lyria's eye. Thin, pulsing lines crawling like digital vines. Arden frowned. "Is that supposed to be there?" "No." The vines pulsed again, glowing with eerie synchronicity. Arden leaned closer. "They're moving toward the engine core." Lyria felt the intent sharpen, a focused hunger. Not biological, not emotional, something precise and cold. "A sabotage program," she whispered. "Artificial, intelligent, directed." Arden's eyes widened. "Directed by who? And can we undirect it? Redirect it? Give it a hobby." The commander's voice crackled over the comms. "All essential personnel report to engineering immediately." Arden grabbed Lyria's hand without thinking. The bond flared, pulsing like a star going nova. They both froze. He released her instantly, flustered. "Sorry. Reflex. Didn't mean to. Leg touch your soul again." But the flare of connection had already expanded, lighting their thoughts with sharp clarity. Lyria felt his fear, his readiness, his determination. He felt her focus, her alarm, her certainty that danger was near. They ran. Engineering was controlled chaos. Panels flickered, coolant vapor drifted in the air, and the chief engineer barked orders, while elbow-deep in a console. She spotted Arden. "Good, you're here. Explain why your psychic friendship bracelet is causing software glitches." "It's not a bracelet," Arden protested. "It's okay, actually that's fair. But this isn't us." Lyria knelt beside the console. Threads of the sabotage program twined through the code like shadowy filaments, pulsing with malicious rhythm. "This is foreign," she said. "Not of human origin. Not mine either. It is familiar." Arden crouched beside her. "Familiar how?" "A faction opposed to the Peace Summit. They've used similar psychic tech interference before." The engineer groaned. "Fantastic. Alien cyber gremlins." Arden's mind brushed hers, hesitant, curious. Can you track it? She focused. The bond sharpened her senses, amplifying her telepathic reach. She followed the threads, tracing them to a maintenance shaft leading deeper into the ship. She stood abruptly. There. Arden followed her gaze. The vent. Yes. He sighed. Of course. All dangerous things hide in vents. Why can't villains ever just use hallways like normal people? They entered the shaft together, crawling through narrow metal corridors that smelled faintly of lubricant and despair. Arden tried to give guidance like a seasoned pilot. Watch your head here. Careful of that pipe. Don't touch that. Actually, I don't know what that is, so definitely don't touch it. At one point, Lyria paused. Your shoulders do not fit well in these passages. They usually do. He grunted, wedging himself through a tight turn. The vent must be smaller than standard. Or you are larger than standard. That's probably true. She felt amusement flutter through him, felt her own amusement answering. Even here, crawling through a narrow tube toward an unknown threat, their bond hummed with a strange, comforting rhythm. They reached a junction where pulsing alien symbols flickered across a stolen ship interface node. The sabotage program had partially manifested as shimmering holographic sigils dancing across the panels. Arden whispered, "That doesn't look friendly." Lyria reached out, extending her mind, preparing to disrupt the connection. Then a burst of hostile psychic pressure hit her, like a shockwave. Arden felt it too, through her, doubling over as if struck. A voice, cold as the void, whispered across their thoughts. Your bond endangers the balance. This alliance must fall. Arden hissed, rude. Lyria steadied herself. They pushed back together, mind in mind, woven by the resonance they never asked for, but now desperately needed. The hostile presence recoiled, hissing through the circuitry. The sabotage program destabilized, flickering wildly. Arden slammed a manual override. Sparks burst, systems reset, and the alien interference dissolved into static. Silence filled the shaft. Arden exhaled shakily. So, we just fought a psychic hacker virus thing together. That's new. Lyria nodded, heart still racing. We were effective. We were amazing. The bond pulsed warm and strong between them. Then, from the comms, the commander's voice rang out. Report. What happened down there? Arden grinned. Do we tell him the short version or the version where the vents tried to murder us? Lyria considered. The short version. For now. Because the long version, the truth, felt like the beginning of something far larger than sabotage. Something neither of them could walk away from anymore. The peace summit was supposed to look dignified. 2 delegations seated around a shimmering holotable, documents floating elegantly, everyone speaking in calm diplomatic tones. Instead, the room looked like the universe had hit shuffle. Security officers paced with scanners drawn. Technicians chased flickering lights across the ceiling, and a medic hovered nearby in case anyone spontaneously bonded with someone else's leg. Arden suspected that last part was aimed specifically at him. Lyria stood beside him, calm but alert, her long ears angled toward every sound. Through the bond he felt her focus, her steadiness, her quiet determination. She, in turn, felt the jittery flutters in his chest, which he tried to suppress by mentally chanting, "Do not embarrass yourself. Do not embarrass yourself," to limited success. Representatives from both species finally arrived, their expressions tense, wary. The attempted sabotage had already reached their ears, and whispers about the dangerous psychic anomaly between Arden and Lyria had escalated into full-blown rumor. One human official leaned toward another and muttered, "I heard the bond lets them read each other's grocery lists." The Valyrian emissary beside him sighed. "We do not use grocery lists. We use memory spirals." The commander gestured for silence. "Before negotiations begin, we must address the psychic interference incident." Arden nudged Lyria gently through the bond, a mental whisper. "Should I speak? Or should I not? I'm 60% sure I shouldn't." Lyria stepped forward instead. The interference was orchestrated by a faction opposed to our alliance. They used psychic tech infiltration methods tailored to exploit instability in our bond. She paused. "But they miscalculated. The bond is not instability. It is strength. A murmur rippled across the room. Arden took that as his cue. Yeah, they tried to hijack us, and we hijacked them back. Well, she hijacked them. I sort of yelled encouragement and pushed a button, but it was a very important button. Lyria sent a small ripple of amused approval through the bond, which Arden tried not to beam at. The Valyrian elder, draped in shimmering neural fabric, leaned forward. Your connection is unprecedented between our species. The human diplomat nodded slowly. And dangerous, if exploited. Lyria bowed her head slightly. Anything new can be dangerous, but it can also illuminate a path forward. Arden cleared his throat. Look, we didn't ask for this. We didn't plan it. Honestly, if we'd planned anything, it would have gone much smoother and with fewer vents. But the bond showed us something. It showed us what trust looks like when two people literally feel what the other feels. He hesitated, then continued, quieter. It showed me I wasn't as alone in the stars as I thought. The bond pulsed, gentle and warm, as Lyria's thoughts brushed his. Nor was I. One of the opposition delegates stood abruptly. This bond threatens neutrality. It creates imbalance. Lyria met his gaze without flinching. It creates understanding, and understanding creates peace. Arden added. Also, I'd like to state for the record that the sabotage plot would have succeeded without our bond. So technically, us being accidentally psychic saved everyone's diplomatic paperwork. The commander pinched the bridge of his nose. Not the wording I would have chosen, but accurate. Another ripple of murmurs filled the chamber, this time thoughtful instead of anxious. The elder raised her staff. Then let this bond serve as a symbol, a bridge between our worlds. A human counselor nodded. If both delegates consent to the connection's existence, we will acknowledge it formally. Arden blinked. Consent? Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, yes. All eyes turned to Lyria. She inhaled slowly. I consent. The bond shimmered, bright and steady, as though responding to being recognized. A soft glow flickered between them, subtle, harmless, but undeniable. The council chamber fell quiet, not in fear this time, but reverence. The agreements were signed shortly after. Measures to prevent further sabotage were drafted. Communications protocols were strengthened. And the alliance, tentative for decades, solidified at last. When the chamber emptied, Arden and Lyria stepped out into the corridor. The hum of the ship was calm again, finally in tune. Arden exhaled. So that was a day. Indeed. You were amazing. You assisted. He placed a hand dramatically over his chest. I'll have you know my button-pressing skills are renowned. Her ears twitched with laughter. Renowned where? In my own mind. Very prestigious place. She let the bond shimmer lightly, warm with affection. I am grateful for your assistance. And your humor. Glad it's good for something. They reached the observation window. The same one where everything had first started to shift. The cosmos stretched wide and glittering before them. Arden leaned forward slightly, letting the quiet settle. Lyria spoke first. I once believed connection across species was impossible. Too distant. Too foreign. She glanced at him. I was wrong. Arden smiled softly. Yeah, I used to think flying through space meant being alone with it. Turns out, it doesn't have to. The bond pulsed, slow and steady, as if acknowledging its own existence. Not an accident. Not a burden. A choice now, one they shared. Lyria looked out at the stars. Our worlds will watch us closely. Arden nodded. Then we'll just have to show them how this works. One step at a time. Together, she said. Yeah, he answered. Together. The ship glided forward, its course steady, its alliance secure, and somewhere deep inside its humming core, it carried two souls bound by chance, strengthened by choice, moving toward a future neither of them had ever imagined possible. The end.